Hello, welcome back to Design Patterns. In this video, I am going to discuss about the prototype pattern. So, what is meant before that? What is meant by prototype? What is the main intent or what is definition? So, prototype means the best example for this prototype is nothing but when we want to perform some design. When we construct or when we want to build or we design the blueprint of that particular concept. So that is, we can call this as a prototypical instance, nothing but a blueprint of every design. So here the intent, coming to the intent, it specifies the kind of objects to create using a prototypical instance and create new objects by copying this prototype. So I already told that it specifies the kind of an object to create using a prototypical instance. So whenever the prototypical instance is need to be created, so before the designing, before the modeling or whatever concept we are going to implement, so before that we have to define the prototype, nothing but we have to make a blueprint of that particular design. When we perform the blueprint of the particular design, we use the copy of its prototype whenever the implementation is started. So that is the best example for prototype pattern, and this is the intent. So it specifies the kinds of an object to create the prototypical intent, and later the copy of the prototype will be defined. Next, coming to the motivation. Generally, motivation defines the problem and also finds the solution to that problem. Here the framework also predefines a graphic tool subclass for tools that create instances of graphical objects and add them to the document. So if whenever the framework is going on, framework means designing or modeling, making an alignment, whatever in the document editor, the framework whenever it is going on, it predefines a graphic tool subclass for tools that create instances of graphical objects and add them to the document. The solution lies in making graphic tool create a new graphic by copying or cloning. Cloning, here we use the cloning. So copying and cloning is also same word, but as a technical we'll use the cloning, nothing but an instance of graphic subclass. We call this instance is nothing but a prototype. Whenever we use the copy of that particular instance, with that copying is known as a cloning. So that method is known as a cloning. And here in the motivation, the solution is mainly defined by the graphical tool, nothing but graphic tool which is created as a new graphic by copying or cloning. So this is about motivation problem. Next, coming to the diagram for motivation. So the main class is nothing but a tool, so or graphic, which defines as a tool. Tool means rotate tool, graphic tool, whatever. So all comes under this rotate tool and graphic tool. And here in the motivation, the graphic tool, we are taking the example as music. Music means audio note. So in the music note, there is a staff note, musical note, whole note, half note. So all this comes under this graphic. So here in this example, there is a graphic or displaying whatever. Here the best example is nothing but a graphic tool and rotate tool. In that graphic tool, we are taking the graphic as a draw position and clone operation, which performs the operations in the main class. So in that, the staff, musical note. So musical note, in the musical note, whole note, half note. So this is about, we can call it as a in that operations of draw and clone. So this is, we can call it as a motivation diagram for prototype pattern. Next, where the prototype pattern is applied. So nothing but the template is known as applicability. So use the prototype pattern when the classes to instantiate or specified at runtime. For example, by dynamic loading, you need different variants of an algorithm. So whenever the prototype pattern is used, so we'll go for the applicability where the pattern is specified at runtime or dynamically loading. In that case, we'll go for the prototype pattern will be successfully applied for different variants of algorithm. So, and also to avoid building a class hierarchy of factories that parallels the class hierarchy of product. So when we need to avoid some hierarchical methods, in that case also we'll apply this prototype pattern. So this is about applicability. Next, coming to the structure template. This template defines the client as user. Is a common way to define as a client as performs as an operation. Next, prototype. in the prototype the operation is clone operation, and from the prototype, concrete prototype 1 and concrete prototype 2, and clone operations will be performed in prototype 1 and prototype 2. So this is about structure. Client is a common operation. So whatever the prototypical instance we are created as a blueprint, what I told, that can be clone. Clone means copying, certain copy of self. So that is nothing but clone. Here I am not using the copy operation, copy word. We are using here the clone word. So it is a concrete prototype 1, 2, 3 and so on. Next, coming to the participants. So in these participants, the prototype, concrete prototype, client is the 3 participants which uses. Next, coming to the collaborations, a client asks a prototype to clone itself. So this is about participants. So in the motivation diagram, so prototype defines the graphic, concrete prototype defines the whole node, half node, staff, client defines the graphic tool. So collaborations means only one way interaction, only one interaction in the entire pattern is nothing but a client asks a prototype to clone itself, to copy itself. So prototype, the only work which is performed by the prototype is nothing but clone itself, nothing but copying itself. So that is nothing but collaboration. Next, coming to the consequences, how the pattern applies and what are the results we are faced. So when this pattern is applied, the result is adding and removing products at runtime. We can expect the easily run dynamically adding and dynamically removing the products at the runtime. So it is not a static. That is one of the major result which we are faced. Next, coming to the specifying new object but by varying values. So whatever the values which are specified, that objects can be, new objects can be specified by varying those values. So and third one is nothing but reduced subclassing. So subclasses will be reduced based on this prototype cloning. Next, coming to the fourth one is nothing but configuration and application with classes dynamically. Runtime, if we'll get the runtime, so we'll define the another result or another advantage. We can write the concept, nothing but dynamical adding. So that is nothing but an application will be configured with classes dynamically. So these are all the 4 advantages and 4 results which we are faced when this prototype pattern is applied. Next, coming to the implementation. So using a prototype manager, by using a prototype manager, only by using the prototype manager will implement this prototype pattern. So next, implement the clone operation. Only with the clone operation only will implement the pattern, as we've seen in the structure and in the motivation diagram, as how the cloning done between the abstract class and concrete subclasses. By using that clone operation, the implementation will be depends on this prototype. So next, initialization clones. So initializing, not implementing, initializing clones also will implement this pattern. So initializing means defining where the clone operation need. When the problem is need, then they will copy the prototypical instance. There the clone operations will be initialized. So in that case also will implement the pattern. Next, coming to the sample code, and this is the sample code. Here the public class defined as a client class, and prototype object 1, object 2, it is a new concrete prototype 1, prototype 2. Next, public interface prototype. So next, public abstract object clone, public class concrete prototype implements prototype. So next, public object clone. So here we are using the 2 concrete prototypes, 2 prototypes objects 1 and 2, what we define in the structure. So if we define in the structure the third object, we'll get the prototype object 3 is equals to new concrete prototype 3. So that is the way, and clone operation will be performed as usual. Next, coming to the known users. So known users is nothing but, I already told, musical editor. Mostly clone operation will be performs in the editor is nothing but musical editor. It is also one of the document editor which performs some musical notes. And the second one is loading. Dynamic loading is the best example for a prototype pattern. Next, coming to the last template is related pattern. So related patterns is nothing but abstract factory, decorator and composite. So abstract factory needs using the prototype as a factory and cloning those concrete prototype as the product classes. Next, decorator also using the clone operations, adding the clone operations or removing the clone operations wherever the runtime, in the runtime. So that's why decorator pattern also supports to the prototype pattern. Next, composite. So composite also used to support this prototype pattern because it performs, it doesn't use that every objects into the hierarchical way. That's why in that case the hierarchical uh, objects can be defined, classes and objects in the hierarchical way can be defined, and can we implement that pattern in the form of hierarchical. So that's why composite pattern also is used to support this prototype pattern. So that's all. This is about prototype pattern. So in this video we learn about the prototype pattern. I hope you all understood about the prototype pattern. So that's all for today's class. In the next class we'll see other pattern. So thank you very much.